Good morning, North Middle School 7th graders. We're going to be working with Analogous Colors again today, and you're going to be creating a painting using a cool analogous color scheme or a warm analogous color scheme. I'm going to demonstrate a cool analogous color scheme. You're going to start off by writing your name and 7, A or B class, at the upper left-hand corner of your paper. This should be done in crayon or pencil. Your paper is going to get very wet. And if you don't use crayon or pencil, it might smear. So the very first thing you're going to be doing is covering your paper with water. You're going to share a spray bottle with your neighbor and completely wet your paper. You don't want it drowning in water, but you do want the whole thing wet. So take your fingers and kind of make sure it's completely covered. Go over it very lightly. If you press too hard, you might tear your paper. Even though this is 80-pound paper, which is fairly heavy, it does tear if it gets wet. So you've got to be careful. Now, the water will make your paper stick to the paper. So once you've got it wet, turn it over and gently press it to your table. Take your water bottle and spray again. You want the surface of your paper nice and wet. We don't want any swimming pools or rivers, but we do want an even coating of water soaking into that paper, because we're going to be using a method called wet on wet. What wet on wet means is that you're using wet paper and wet paints, and the water that's on the paper is going to push the water that's in the paint together, and it'll do a little bit of the work for you. It's going to be doing some color mixing. You'll be using tempera paints today. These are actually cake temperas. And I'm using a cool color scheme today. You may use either warm or cool, but my color scheme is going to include blue, violet, and green. I'll be using water to clean my brush with. There's my McDonald's cup. And I'll be having to clean my brush in between each color. Now, I'm going to start with a horizontal band of color across the top of my paper. The first color I'm going to work with will be green. So I will roll my brush in the green paint. You want to just kind of roll your brush like this. If you dig in and get a little bit too adventurous with this paint might splatter. If you get it on your awesome uniform, it may not come out. So you want to be careful with the paint. Get your brush loaded with paint, and you will need to work pretty quickly. But you can see I've got pretty much paint on my brush. So I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to paint from one side to the other. Left to right or right to left, whichever is easiest for you. All the way from one end to the other. It's okay to even go off the table. You're going to clean your table when you're done anyway. So I'm going to go off the paper. I don't want any white spots at the top, on the left or the right. I'm going to paint my first band of color. You'll notice it's almost twice as wide as my brush. Then before I go to the next color, I'm going to have to dip my brush back in the water, clean it off real good. My next color is blue. So I'm going to dip my brush in the paint. I'm rolling it in gently, trying not to splatter it, onto my khakis or my polo. And I'm going to start my second band of color. Now when I do this, I don't want to touch the green when I first start. I want to get a really good band of bright blue on there before I touch that green. So I'm going to press it in. You can see the water's kind of moving that paint around. Once I get a really nice band of blue and it goes all the way from one side to the other with no white showing on the left or the right, then I'm going to bring it up to the green so that it's touching the green. Now at this point, I do want these colors to do a little color mixing. So I'm going to take my brush and just kind of give it a slight brush stroke here, back and forth. And then I'm going to go over it horizontally, and you should be able to begin to see kind of a blue-green color. This is my tertiary color. And it's going to be about the width of my brush, maybe a little bit wider. So now I have a green, a blue-green, and a blue. Time to change the color. So I'm going to swish out my paintbrush again in the water and go to violet. Once again, I'm going to load up my brush. And you can see I'm working pretty quickly. I'm not looking around the room or slowing down. I want to get that paint on there fast, because once that paper starts drying, my colors won't mix as well. So I'm loading up my brush. I'm putting on my first band of color. I love this violet. It's a really vibrant color, one of my favorites. And I'm pressing it on, left to right, going all the way to the edge. Once I get a good band of color, then I'm going to bring that violet up to the blue so that it's touching. The water will start to do a little bit of the blending. I don't want any white showing. And then I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to blend the blue and the violet with a little back and forth stroke of my brush. Once I've done that, then I'm going to bring that color straight over into a band of color. Now hopefully you can start to see the blue violet, and the violet. And then I'm going to go in reverse order. I've got still paper left over, so I'm not going to start at the top. I'm going to start in reverse order, back with my blue. And the reason for that is because violet and green really do not mix well, because green's got a little bit of yellow in it, and violet and yellow are opposite colors. So I'm going to put blue down again. I'm going to make sure it goes on nice and bright, a wide band of color. And once I've got that on, I'm going to touch it with the violet. Haven't started mixing yet, but they should be automatically mixing a little bit. Notice when I start to mix these colors, I'm being really careful not to lose the original violet. I want to be able to see that violet there. And now I'm going to take my brush. I'm going to add just a little bit more violet to that. And I'm going to brush straight across so I have a nice red violet. And my last color is going to be the color that I started with, which is green. So I'm going to dip my brush in the green paint, load it up. Now, if you're a person who likes warm colors, the three colors you will be working with are yellow, red, and orange. Your first color will be yellow, your second color will be orange, and then your last color will be red. There goes my green. Notice I'm taking it all the way off the paper, all the way to the edge, because I don't want any white showing at all. And then once I get that on there nice and bright, I love the bright colors, brightly lit, almost like Christmas lights. Then I'm going to take my two colors that are side by side, help them blend together a little bit by that back and forth brush stroke, and then I'm going to make another horizontal band here. That should be giving me my blue-green. So I've got a really nice combination of colors, starting with green, blue-green, blue, blue-violet, violet, another blue-violet, blue, another blue-green, and a green. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this. Thank you so much, boys and girls, for staying focused on this project. So now you have fun creating your own art.